Good morning, everyone, and we welcome you to the session on accelerating the access to excellence within the European Research and Innovation Days. Before starting, I would like to remind the audience that you can also join a discussion. Please use the Slido QR code, scan it, and you can pass your questions to the speakers. We will have a short slot at the end of the session to reply to your questions. So we are debating today a topic on the accelerating access to excellence that is widely discussed politically and in more research-concerned groups. And we all understand that more cohesive approach to research and innovation performance and research and innovation in general is instrumental for Europe to make it grow, progress, and develop more capacities as it can be done now. This boosting innovation requires significant efforts at both European and national levels. And of course, it is absolutely evident that we would not be here today if we would not know that quite a lot is done both at European and at national levels. So at European level, there is a lot of funding in the cohesion programming, but also in the former Horizon 2020 program as its widening part concerns. And in the Horizon Europe program, the new one that just started, this part for widening instruments is even tripled. So there is quite a lot of opportunities and funding possibilities for those willing to develop their capacities. Lots of effort, different efforts, are also being taken at national and region level. That's why we have today quite a big representation of various angles into this problem with us. So I'm glad to introduce our speakers today. First, it is Mr. Dan Nica, a member of the European Parliament and former rapporteur of the Horizon 2020 program. So also politically very much involved into the process of developing European measures. We are glad to have with us also Mr. Slavomir Radošević, who is a professor of industry and innovation studies at the University College in London. Mrs. Jana Klanova will be also with us and talking to us. She's a coordinator of one of the brilliant teaming projects that is called Setoko and Excellence and placed in the Czech Republic in Brno. And she's also professor of environmental chemistry at Masaryk University in Brno. And also we have Mr. Mateusz Gaczyński with us, who is a deputy director in the Department of Innovation and Development of Ministry and Education in Poland. Happy very much to see you here in this session. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to participate. And we would like to hear your views on the topic about how we would need or what is happening, what is missing in that in the issues of accelerating access to excellence. Our general questions to panelists are like that. So we are curious to hear, and we would like to hear your reflections about how do you see this tandem of national and European measures going on? What do you think? What is, in your view, the main challenges for widening countries? And most importantly, are those challenges always the same or are they changing? And how do you see what needs to be done in order to attract more talents to those countries? And also we would be curious to hear what, in your opinion, are the lessons learned from the former Horizon 2020 programs on widening. So I'm very happy to give the floor to our first speaker, Mr. Dan Nica. Please, we would really be curious to hear your views.
Thank you so much. For me as a rapporteur for Horizon Europe and the negotiator for Horizon Europe, there is a very good opportunity. And thank you so much for making possible for me to be present on the RNI the Days edition of 2022. I'd like to start by saying many thanks to the Commissioner Maria Gabriel and the experts from the European Commission. They are working very hard, and you have to understand that, you have to know in the meantime, that we in the ITRE committee, the responsible committee of the European Parliament for the Horizon, for the research, and of course Horizon Europe, it's under the scrutiny of this committee, and we are deeply involved, and we are working together with the Commission, with the other stakeholders, to make sure that whatever we decided in the Horizon Europe regulation is moving forward, and we want to have all the money available for the researchers in the European Union as soon as possible. And we want to understand in the meantime if there are any shortcomings, any obstacles in the implementation of this very important program with an amount of 95 billion euros. And I mentioned the Commissioner Maria Gabriel. She was present in Galați, in Romania, last Monday in the high-level conference on Horizon Europe with the name Funding Opportunities for Romanian Researchers and Enterprises. And in the front of audience of more than 350 people, the Commissioner Maria Gabriel and the representative of the DG RTD from the European Commission, they made a very sound and comprehensive presentations of the Horizon Europe and the opportunities for the Romanian researchers. And I would like just to say again, the best example used by the Commissioner Maria Gabriel, it was exactly the presence of the very eastern part of the European Union. Galați is 10 kilometers from the Ukrainian-Moldavian border. And she said that the research activities, they are equally important in Brussels and in Galați. So these are the kind of examples, and these are the kind of messages very much needed by the EU13, the countries which are meant and designed to use the money from the widening. Why it's important to give this kind of signals, and why it's important to show the support of the European Commission to all the member states, regardless their distance from Brussels. In Galați, the Commissioner Maria Gabriel, she was able to see a very important project developed by the University of Galați. Just to give an example, the name is RexDan. Some of you may have you already had the chance to see it because it was a presentation here in the European Parliament. But why it's important, this project? Because it's the very first project of for researchers able to check the quality of the environment, of the Danube waters, starting from the Black Sea until way the way to the Netherlands, if you want. So for the very first time, the researchers, they will be able to check how the development of the quality of the water is happening. If there are pollution, what kind of pollution, where this is coming from, how we can better address the pollution, what is the impact on the environment of the Danube, and also to the Rhine-Main rivers. That's the first of a kind project, important, and that will be, I think, a flagship for all these type of projects, because if you are talking about the environment, it's important to show that we are serious about making the right kind of activities to put the researchers in the forefront of the battle for the better environment. About the Horizon Europe, we had the COVID-19, the pandemic, and the lesson learned is that we have to invest more in the research and the innovation, and even the most skeptic, people, they had to acknowledge that we did it well, because one of the best vaccine it has been developed using EU money, and we had the right tool in our hands in that very important battle against the pandemic. So I'd like to say that although we have this program of 95.5 billion euros for the Horizon Europe, we are not happy because it's still below the what we asked for, 120 billion euros. But we have this money, and the aim is to help all the EU member states for the future support for health system, to better prepare them for this pandemic, for next pandemics, to decarbonize the EU industry, and to innovate the business activities across the European Union. So, according to the data made available by the European Commission, for each euro invested in this program, we have a return of up to 11 euros in gross domestic product over the 25 years. So we know that all the money which they've been channeled through the previous program, Horizon 2020, it was a very strong support to be able to have vaccines against COVID-19, also extremely important results on diagnostic treatments, preparedness, and the response to outbreaks and to socioeconomics and mental health and many other aspects. And I would like to insist that Europe will never be economically wealthy nor safe without substantial financing on the research and innovation activities, and also on its basic research and for the applied research as well. That's why my call to the member states, it was and still it is, to allocate 3% of their GDP for the research, for their national research programs, in order to better assist the research community in each and every single member state. About the widening, because that was your question, and I would like to say a few words about that very important part of the Horizon Europe. Because why it's important? Because we have to spread the excellence program across the European Union. And the problem is to remedy the unequal performance of member states and to stimulate the excellence on each and every single member state, and especially on the member states with lower performances, which they had always difficulties to compete with the best performance and more experienced countries. Another impediment for the widening countries is the lack of knowledge, because all the other states, they had an advance in participation and funding from the framework programs during the years. So-called clubs of performers were created, and whether we have to recognize it or not, this is quite an important factor. Horizon 2020, it was the program, the previous research program. In that program, we managed to introduce the first measures dedicated to the widening countries in order to increase their participation. As a negotiator for Horizon Europe, I negotiated, of course, the widening measures with a clear desire to contribute to the reduction of the gap on the research and innovation. Number one, I managed, together with my colleagues from the European Parliament, to allocate a budget which is significantly higher, with now 3% of the total program of 95.5 billion euros. So 3.3% of the 95.5 billion euros, that's an important, a substantial amount of money. New measures to increase the participation in the program and to promote a wide geographical coverage with the collaboration projects, including by spreading excellence, the scientific excellence, is stimulating new collaboration links, and by combating, of course, in the meantime, the brain drain. Attractive salaries, the possibility for member states to establish attractive salaries for researchers with the support of union, national, and the regional funds. Hop-on type measures, the possibility to participate in ongoing collaborative research and innovation project. One particular measures that I insisted that it has been introduced is the blind evaluation. And for this, we are still waiting from the Commission to have the very first program of blind evaluation in place, because I think it's important to give the signal that excellence only criteria is based on pure objective criteria, and we are very keen to see the results of this very first pilot project.
Mr. Nica, I'm very sorry, we are running out of time. Can I?
Okay, yeah. So I conclude here, and if you have any questions, thank you so much for
very fast conclude. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you also very much for your political support on European level. That's really very important. Thank you. Sorry to have stopped you, but we really need to watch our time. I would like to give the floor now to Mr. Slavomir Radošević, and particularly kind of willing to hear your views from the scientific point of view. This is not a very often perspective. So the floor is yours, and I would also like to ask you to keep the time, please.
Yes, I will try. Thank you very much. We have four different speakers, and
there is something apparently with the internet connection there. Could we maybe go to the next speaker in between? Would that be possible?
Yes, between.
Yes, if technically, is that okay? Mr. Slavomir, are you back? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you well. I don't have a problem on my side.
Yes, now it goes well. So you also have slides, so please, the floor is yours.
Okay, so the main challenge which I see is obviously R&D excellence, but R&D excellence can be improved to the extent that also that R&D excellence is locally relevant, because if there is no domestic demand, if that R&D cannot be linked with the regional economy, then things will not work very well. So that is the point on the next slide, please. Yes. So now we can move immediately on the next slide, where I try to explain what is the point that. So here you can see the this comes. I'll go very briefly through several pieces of research which I have done. So here we have a kind of data which points to not only to R&D capability, but points to technology capability, to production capability, if you see in this graph. And also on the right-hand side, you see firm level capabilities. And you can see the changes here. This is another type of composite indicators in Europe in this period. And what we could see on our satisfaction that the technology capability and R&D and knowledge intensity have improved in different European regions, including the cohesion regions. But then you see production capability and you see firm capability that they have actually relatively declined. So we have a kind of positive trends on one side, but negative on the other. If you can show the next slide. On the next slide, we see a European Innovation Index, which is much more familiar to many of you. And on the left-hand side, you see the indicators which point all to R&D related things, R&D, patents, trademark, and so on. And you see improvements on that side. Yeah, on the right-hand side, you see indicators which are more about the application. They're about the innovation in SMEs, different type of innovation activities. And you see that they have all going down. So we have a kind of reduced R&D gap if you go look at the left-hand side, but we have increased innovation and deployment gap on the right-hand side. And here I'm looking at the performance of EU 13 new member states compared to the old type EU, so to say, as is usually done. So here we see the kind of similar type of problem confirmed in a different type of indicator. If you can go on the next slide, we can see that basically we have to consider R&D excellence in the context of this science innovation deployment gap. And the idea is that we have R&D excellence within the Horizon 2020, that there will be some kind of trickle-down effect, which will then by itself lead to growth. But that is a simplified idea, because that requires absorption, learning capabilities, that requires firm-level capabilities, and the current policies, they are largely focused on R&D as the major force for growth. And we neglect that the R&D interact with other sources of technology, with the other sources of productivity. And to show you kind of in a more kind of
maybe we can have a next slide in the meantime. Professor Slawomir, are you back with us?
Academic way on productivity. I am with you, yes, but I don't see slide. Yeah, sorry.
Now you should see.
So this is not, yeah. So the conventional thinking is the R&D lead to more innovation, that innovation lead to more productivity. But our research, econometric research on emerging economies, which includes also here all Central East European economies, show that it doesn't work like that. You know, R&D does not lead to leads to more innovation, but that does not necessarily lead to higher productivity. There is a kind of breakdown in this change, and very often link goes the other way around. It goes from production capability to R&D. On the next slide, I want to highlight the reasons why it is the case. Why, if you can show the next slide, why you cannot jump from R&D to innovation, because there is something missing in between. What is missing in between are these design, engineering, management, and production capabilities. So there is a whole range of issues when we say R&D excellence, whether that excellence kind of can then generate results, and very often push an acceleration of R&D excellence comes from the demand side, come from the production side. And if I can jump over the next slide and just show the slide afterwards, I want to be more down and specific. Yes, this slide. So we have done evaluation of EU structural funds, and where this was an important component looking at the R&D and R&D infrastructure, and what we could see are several phenomena. First, we see increased collaboration, but this is not science-industry collaboration. This is a more science-science collaboration. In EU, we get new centers of excellence, but they are plugged within the EU networks, but they are not linked to local economy. So we have enhanced applied R&D also, because there is a money for applied R&D, but business sector is not using these results. We see increased number of students, but then we don't see still in new member state research-based universities. We see massive investment in R&D in infrastructure, but very often large firms do not have access to that infrastructure. So there is no kind of something which academics call industry.
Yeah. Professor Radošević, are you back?
Commons with local regions. So we have also increased regional R&D intensity, but within regions, we get actually increased regional R&D concentration. And let me finish, because I still got only 30 seconds. On the next slide, I want to summarize that point. The issue is whether R&D alone can improve the transformative capacity of innovation systems. And my answer would be no, it cannot, unless it is also locally relevant. So key challenge is not only to improve R&D excellence, but make it more relevant, linking it to the local technology and manufacturing capabilities. And the final slide basically just tried to show it conceptually in a paper which we've done before, showing that very often we have this focus on the first quadrant there, and in reality we have very often activities which are basically in the worst possible world, where it means that the R&D is not excellent, but is also not locally relevant. So I think that the policy should take this dimension into account, in addition to all these activities as Mr. Dan Nika has highlighted. So I brought another dimension, which I'm sure that people that are working narrowly on the R&D issues are very often forgetting, but I think they're crucial for us to understand what are the broader obstacles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks for keeping nicely the time. Thank you very much for bringing this relevance of the place into the attention. This is really sometimes we tend to forget this angle, but I think we will go deeper into that. In our next presentation, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Jana Klanova, who is a coordinator and leader of a project, also a scientific center in Brno. She will tell us more. The project is one of the widening instruments. It is a teaming one. So, Jana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Karina. So greetings to everyone. Thank you for excellent previous presentation. Greetings from Brno, from the Recetox Center of Masaryk University, and we are a proud holder of the Teaming, Twinning, and ERA-Chair project from widening. So I'll try to provide you the view from the bottom, from the project. We started the implementation of all three projects in 2020, so we are in the middle of it. We were lucky because Recetox Center was established already 10 years ago using the European Structural and Investment Fund. So it means there was already the technical capacity, and what we needed from the widening actions was to build the better connection. So talking about the combination of the national and European resources for the Czech Republic, it was mostly the ESIF funding that was used to it. I know that is not the case in all the widening countries. It is the advantage, but also the disadvantage. The advantage is that money were readily available. There was no problem with co-financing, but the question is whether this strategy will be good for the future, because the Czech Republic is now in the opening, the last programming period of the ESIF funds, and they already need to think about how such programs will be co-financed in the future, or whether the Czech Republic will be already advanced enough not to be eligible for the widening schemes. Next slide, please. So I said that we are the center of excellence in the area of environmental health sciences. The ambition of the project was really linking the 3 points of the triangle, which means the healthy planet, healthy individual, and sustainable society, not harming the planet and the population health. I said that we already had some significant investment 10 years prior to the teaming project, but what was lacking was really the human. And I think it is the truth for most of the other, teaming projects, that the crucial thing are human resources. And one thing is that we can provide them with the competitive funding and salaries, but it is also the greater, bigger, wider environment that is discouraging them from applying for these kind of the projects. One thing being the language program, a lot of problem. There is a lot of programs that are focused on young scientists, but it's much harder to keep the senior scientists, especially if they already have the children. They have a problem of sending them to schools that are run mostly in the local languages and such. Also, having the career in the widening region is not the best way for their CVs. So I think that if we want to attract them, we really need to invest more into the general attractiveness. Money is not the only thing, the technical infrastructure is not the only thing. We have to provide them with some extra. Next slide, please. And one of the approaches that we took during our teaming project was to try to build the bigger regional partnership. And this is why I like the previous presentation so much, because I can only support the view that these investments would pay off only if the region is ready for that. And not only because we are investing a lot into the population-based research. It is very important to see the citizens as a subject of the research, but also the stakeholders, but the partners for future transformational change. So this is why building the Brno Living Lab was one of the very important goals of our teaming project. And we wanted to team up not only with our advanced fund partners like UCL in London or ETH in Zurich, but we also teamed up with our regional authorities, with the city of Brno, with the local hospitals and local industries. trying to really build the platform for the transformative changes. I think this is also one of the benefits that we can offer to our employees or the scientists, to provide them with a bigger picture, with more supportive environment. The Brno Living Lab is actually one of the goals of the regional innovation strategy of the South Moravia, and it is also the top flagship project of the Brno strategy for 2050. So we really worked hard to make the environment aware of what we are and trying to listen to the local stakeholders of what they need and how they can be helped. But another thing that I would like to stress out is that we also need the support of the institutions and their ambition, because it's not enough to have the ambitious center. You really need to have the ambitious university and the region who can see the opportunities, and they have a certain will to make the changes. Next slide, please. So when we were drafting our teaming project, we didn't just want to catch up with the western part of the Europe, but we wanted to lead in certain aspects. And we were using our local expertise in building the national research infrastructure that is part of the national roadmap of the research infrastructures. And we used this opportunity to put forward the idea of building the European S3 infrastructure for human exposome research. And we really were able to gather the partners around us, put forward the application, which was successfully evaluated. And since the last year, ARIN infrastructure is part of the S3 roadmap. So if I should summarize some take-home message, one of them is that teaming projects are not really the charity from the advanced partners. So those that have to apply have to be good, they have to have their ambitions, they have to be prepared and ready to do the extra work. And the second message, the sustainability of such centers have to be supported by the institutions who have the shared ambition with the centers and by the regions. So the next slide, greetings from Brno, from the region of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jana. Thank you for your messages. I especially like the one about that this is not a charity, so a lot of work is behind every project and every happening. We all keep in mind this and continue with the measures. And so I would like to give the floor now to Mr. Mateusz Gaczyński, representative of Polish government. In your view, from the governmental perspective, how would you describe the situation?
Thank you very much for having me in this discussion and for bringing up this important topic in the European R&I days. It's good to see the topic tackled in this environment. I try to answer the questions you posed in the first part of the discussion, but let me start with saying, maybe very undiplomatic, but how we feel about this access to excellence idea. I think speaking about access to excellence in terms of countries that are partners, for instance, in efforts to bring up the renew European research area is kind of bad heritage from the past. We know that the situation that we were less developed was the situation from the past. Currently, we are not in the same situation anymore. So I think we need to change also the narratives when we are talking about this issue. And I like very much, Katrina, your expression of excellence cohesion, or expression Jean-Marie Paquet once used when he was in Warsaw, when he referred to sharing of excellence, because it stresses very much the real aspect of these actions, which is that we need to exploit all the excellence potential in Europe that is relevant to the challenges that are in front of our societies and the economies. As for the tandem between the EC instruments and the national measures, we definitely see the potential in building such a tandem. But what we really need in this aspect is more direct cooperation between the countries and the European Commission services across the board, not only in the R&I Directorate for Research and Innovation, but across the board. Let me use the example of our PSF projects we had in Poland in 2017. I personally think that the PSF experience we had from the perspective of the Polish administration was one of the best experiences we ever had as regards policy building towards more excellent research and more relevant innovation. We have report prepared in a very good dialogue with the European Commission expert, and we try to implement the recommendation from the report. Of course, it's not perfect, but sometimes it's very difficult for us to understand approach of the European Commission towards some instruments that are PSF based and that we want to implement, for instance, with using cohesion policy money. On one hand, we have a very good support from the DG Research and Innovation. On the other hand, we have not so very much support, to put it diplomatically, from the other European Commission DGs. That needs to be changed in order to facilitate the tandem building and to increase its effectiveness. This tandem building is also very important, taking into account that the excellence principle we are talking about is a constant challenge, but it's a constant challenge that is not carved in stones. It develops in time, it changes. So the meaning of excellence was different 10 years ago and it's different now. I think Slavo's presentation put it very rightly that the excellence cannot be treated separately as a policy area or instrument as its own. It needs to be related to the other instruments or other policies that need to be implemented at the level of the member state. And in Poland, we try to do that using cohesion policy instruments. So we try to, on one hand, build research excellence, but on the other hand, develop this excellence as regards this damp part of the equation Slavo referred to on the level of the entrepreneurs. And here we see this tandem working. So yesterday, European Commission agreed to our research and innovation support program that is to the large extent based on this excellence and relevance principle. One of the things that I would like to stress is that in order to make our countries, so the widening countries, more attractive, we need to avoid putting them all into the one basket, because we are talking about less performing regions, low R&I intensive regions, and we are using statistical terms to describe very different realities, because even in the poorest countries, we have a number of examples that are equally excellent as the Western European partners. They do not have problems with accessing the consortia because they have kind of the flight heritage, if I may use the expression from the space policy. One of the challenges that lies ahead for us for the next programming period in the context of excellence cohesion is that we need to avoid at all costs the using this widening idea or widening instruments as the instrument or idea only for itself. We like Czech Republic and other countries, we have a number of examples that teaming, twinning, or RHRs projects work very well. But we cannot put the widening efforts only on the projects like that. We need to have real widening policies. Therefore, we are very eager to see how the hop-on scheme will look like and how the effects of the hop-on scheme will look like in the future. How this new mechanism based on the Article 52.1 of the Horizon Europe regulation will look like. So how this matching mechanism that is to be introduced by European Commission will work in practice. Because those are the real cohesion widening instruments that need to be put in place for the next programming period. Because if we look only at the experiences we have from Horizon 2020 or part of the Horizon Europe widening package, we fear that this widening approach might be approached only for itself. So member states or European Commission services might stick to the idea that we have the widening instruments in place, everything will be good. That's not how it will work, I think. So my main message from our side is that we need to change approach and change the perspective. We cannot speak constantly about less performing regions because it doesn't contribute to building positive approach for the effort that is in front of us. That's my main message. So we need to change the language, and as a result, we definitely change our approach and change the instruments for the more efficient one, not building ghettos, but building real cohesion and real sharing of the excellence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gaczynski. Thanks a lot for your points of view. Also, thank you for your critical remarks and suggestions for the future. That's also very, very important. It will definitely enter into the general discussion. Well, unfortunately, we have very little time. I'm not sure we can take any questions from Slido. We haven't spoken about stakeholders at all. There was a question about how stakeholders can intervene here. I don't know, Mrs. Klandova, maybe just one brief sentence on your side. How do you think the stakeholders can help or can intervene?
I think very often when you speak about stakeholders, people are thinking only about the industry. But we have to be aware that stakeholders are much wider. It's the industry, it are the politicians, decision makers, it's the society, health sector, and such. So I think they all need to be involved already in the discussion. I like the last speaker talking about, change in the language. Maybe this can be part of those negotiations and rethinking the concept. That, how to include also the applications into the society and public sector, and how to get those people around the table when the new program will be drafted.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your views. I think I need to really thank all the speakers at the moment. We are approaching the end of our session, so thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you very much to the audience, to your time. We all understand, and especially after having heard all the views, that there is still a lot of work ahead of us. But anyway, we need to work in tandem. We need to join the efforts, see how to do it best. Even if there are quite a lot of opportunities, we need to well use them. So thank you very much once again to everyone, and have a nice day today.